Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is Rubidium. Today we are looking at a very cool new camera that I finally have in my hand and I'm able to play with for under $2,000. This is the Sigma FP. I did a first impressions video of this camera a couple of weeks ago. It's doing really well. I'll link to it here. But I was actually able to get the camera now for a couple of weeks, and I've been playing around with all the questions I had after just playing with it for a few hours, and I've managed to get what I think is a really great image out of it. This is not my Canon C200. This is the FP. I'm able to get a beautiful, raw, gradable image out of the FP that's full frame. I still haven't got autofocus working. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about. But I'm able to do it with my, this is the Rokinon 85. I think we're shooting at 2.8. But because it's full frame, I still get my bokeh. I'm at ISO 400 now. I did a couple of tests between shooting the 1080 and shooting the 3800 or whatever the 4K is in this. And there's a lot more detail in the 4K, surprisingly. So even downgrading after post and uploading in 2K down res from the 4K, you get a lot more detail. I might upload this in 4K anyway, so you guys can see the quality of the image that I'm, really impressed by. There are a few tricky things with this camera. It doesn't come with a charger, so you need to charge it through the USB port, but you're also using the USB port to capture the RAW, so you can only charge it or power it while it's not running. There's no cages commercially available for this yet. There's a couple of test ones out of the small rig one to see what that looks like. I'm also kind of working on making my own one out of a 15mm rod mount plate and a couple of different accessories, which I'll show in another video. Basically, if you've been waiting to shoot full frame RAW for under $2,000, look no further. For all those Blackmagic pocket cinema camera owners out there that have struggled with the micro four thirds in the 2K or the 35mm, super 35mm in the 6K, this camera really has it all. Super cheap media. It shoots to the Samsung T5 drives. Had no issues with that. It shoots audio, as you can hear now. It is a little tinny. Surprise, surprise, this is not a digital cinema camera. It's not even a DSLR. It's like a tiny mirrorless point and shoot. So the preamps in it are nothing to write home about, and my voice is pretty terrible anyway right now from a cold. So the audio is not going to win any awards. It may be worth playing around with an external recorder once I've got the kit working. I'm using my Teradek here. I'm actually running the HDMI signal from the camera into the Bolt 500, and then I have my Bolt 500 monitor here. I'm recording the signal, so I'm able to monitor focus. So the focus, it's good on the stills camera from what I can tell. It's pretty good one-touch autofocus like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. Continuous autofocus, I was using the L to EF converter, and it was certainly not transferring through to the EF lenses. So I went to Sigma Burbank and borrowed a couple of L mount lenses, and they had problems as well. Doesn't really do the face detect or eye detect, doesn't really grab on. This is a new autofocus system, so hoping that when we get the, and you can see me keep glancing down at the monitor to make sure I don't move too much out of focus. Yeah, I've got at 2.8, I've got about 10 inches in which I'm reasonably sharp, and I'm trying to keep it in that 1 inch. It's razor sharp to show how nice this image is. Yes, I'm outputting 4K DNG files, like thousands and thousands of stills, to the T5 hard drive, and then it appends at the end of that a .wav file. So it's recording the audio in the same directory. They open up in Resolve absolutely easily, as a video file, not as stills, and then you just have to sync up the audio file by dragging it back into line. The ergonomics of this camera are pretty good for what it is. They're not perfect. Obviously, you have to go into the menus to set your ISO, to set your volume. You have to go into the menus to set lots of things because there's no real dials. on the camera except for f-stop and shutter speed, which isn't particularly helpful shooting cinema. I'm not really going to pull my shutter speed in the middle of a shot. I would much rather adjust ISO. But there's no option to change that to the dial as of yet. 60p, this camera works great even in 4K RAW. 100p, it looks like, or 100 FPS looks like we're going to get in early 2020 in a firmware update. But so far, the slow 60p or 50p are the slow-mo options you have with this camera. It does shoot an MP4 to the SD card. I haven't even used it. I know it's not going to be great. I've seen the transfer rate, and I would much rather stick with my RAW. That's what I know. I know a lot about this file format because for 5 years I shot on Magic Lantern, which was the same DNG files. I really like it. I have no problem dealing with the files in post. I'll do a video about my post workflow, but generally this is a pretty kick-ass camera. I had a lot of questions when I did that first impression, and I've pretty much solved most of them except for the autofocus. All of them, the camera's really going to work well for me as a B camera and as an A camera for my C200. Just, full frame is amazing. You can just crop straight into your Super 35. It's like carrying a second lens. And you can crop in on 4K. So if you're mastering 2K, then you can crop in again and get a second lens. So, you can carry a 35mm lens, crop in to the sensor to get the equivalent of a 50mm field of view, and then crop in on the 4K in post if you're to get a 2K version of what would be a 75mm lens. So it's a very versatile camera, being able to shoot 4K and crop in full frame. There are definitely downsides to this. Like I said, the audio is not great. The adjustment of the audio is not great. You've got to go like 4 menus deep. It's great to have a screen on the back of the camera. I haven't had that on my C200B. It'll be a case of getting all the accessories working and rigging this in a way that is handheld for me. But I took this to a casting session the other day, much better than taking my whole C200 rig. Instead of a tripod, I put it up on just a light stand. Worked great. I was able to get a really nice image in a way that wasn't too imposing, which is really the delight of this camera being so much smaller and the sensor being so much bigger. I have been playing with this all morning and I'm almost through the battery. The actual battery power on this thing is great. You get about almost 2 hours of recording if you charge it. And like I said, you have to charge it while the camera's down. There is a solution to take the door off, I believe, and use some kind of external power, which I'm going to look into. But my next step is going to be do a video for you guys about how I've processed these RAWs to keep them to get this kind of color depth and what I'm doing. So stay tuned. That is my real review of shooting raw video on the Sigma FP. Links are in the description if you guys want to pick one of these up, and subscribe to the channel to see more videos about this camera. I'm going to do a bunch more. It's a lot of fun. I will see you next time.